one.
Boom.
Okay. Hi everyone, it's Carrie from Live Accessible, and I'm so glad you guys could all make it. Today I've got the hosts from the Blind Tech Guys, Nimmer, Marco, and Kurt, and we're going to be talking about navigating when you're blind or you have low vision and just everything about it, all about apps and guide dogs, canes, everything that falls under navigation. But first, Nimmer, why don't you tell us what is Blind Tech Guys podcast? Where can people listen to it, and what do you guys talk about?
Hello. Hello, everybody. My name is Nimmer, and I am a host of the Blind Tech Guys podcast. We started a long time ago as Anatad Podcast. We became NTAD Podcast. We changed platforms many times. We added a crazy Aussie named Marco and another guy, Mr. I don't know what his nickname is yet. We haven't gotten one for him yet. His name is Kurt. He's from Utah. And we're just a bunch of people that have fun, that we built a community. We like to have a good time, and we like to talk tech. And so what we end up talking about is a lot is mobile devices, Android, iOS, from a blindness perspective. But we also talk about PCs, web apps, Macs, Linuxes, whatever else you want to talk about. We have a mailing list, a YouTube channel that we broadcast to weekly, a Facebook, a Twitter, tweet. We don't have an Instagram or a Snack or anything like that, but we tend to, stick to YouTube and Facebook and all that, and Telegram and WhatsApp. And if you'd like to find our podcast, go to blindtechguys.com. Very
Yeah,
good. You like?
and I put the link to the YouTube channel as well as the podcast down in the description for anybody, and I will also put that in the chat. So why don't you introduce yourself, Marco and Kurt, whoever wants to go first.
Well, I'll go first. Hello, listeners to Live Accessible. It's Marco from Down Under in Melbourne, where it's a rather cold day today. We went from, I think it was 80 yesterday to 50 today. So it's cold, and I don't like at all, because I hate cold.
It's actually
yeah, it's
really
good.
hot over here.
Yeah, I hear you guys are going through a bit of an early heat wave, which is a bit crazy, but that's good. And it's good to be a part of your podcast, and hopefully the listeners and viewers will get a bit out of today's show. And Kurt.
Yes, I am Kurt. I am coming to you from the United States, the great state of Utah, where it is, I don't know, I haven't gone outside yet today, but it's been pretty warm the last couple days. And I've been on the Blind Tech Guys podcast for a few months now, and I very much enjoy talking tech and learning from everyone here.
And we are the Blind Tech Pooches.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so actually I found I don't even remember how I found the Blind Tech Guys. I think it was a talkback video that you guys did talking about Talkback 9 point, whatever the newest one is. And
that was our most popular download, so that doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah.
Well, YouTube actually recommended it to me, so
Ooh.
I was like, "Oh, okay, great. I guess YouTube just
we actually got a recommendation. What?"
And then so I took a listen, and like everybody sees me as somebody who knows technology, but I see myself just as somebody who knows some, like probably average, or but like Nimmer, Marco, and Kurt, they are know much more than I do. So I learn so much from the podcast, and definitely go check it out, guys. They have pretty great content, and they're also really funny. So anyway, today, first I do want to say, so if I'm getting this right, Nimmer, Marco, and Kurt, all of you guys are totally blind. That's right.
Correct,
right?
That's right.
Okay. So that's another thing I want to talk a little bit about, the differences between navigating when you're blind versus when you have low vision. So let's just jump right in. Let's first talk about what mobility aids do you guys use? A guide dog, cane? What do you find more helpful? Let's start with Nimmer again.
Well, I'm a guide dog user and a cane user sometimes and a nothing user sometimes, but primarily use a guide dog, and so that's my primary mode of travel.
So I used to be a guide dog user. I've actually haven't had a guide dog now for about 6 years. God, that's gone fast. 6 years. So yeah, predominantly a cane user these days, and that's really because I mostly work from home, or if I do need to go to a client's house, I can get there fairly easily without one. So I haven't really got the need for a dog at the moment, and also I live in a unit, and we live upstairs, so it's a little bit, a little bit difficult to have a dog here or a large dog.
Yep, and I am a cane user, always have been, and I've never really experienced what it's like to have a dog, but a cane has so far in my life met all of my needs just fine.
Gotcha. And so let's just talk about that for a second. Like, Marco, since you've used both in Nimmer too, what do you think are the differences, and why should somebody get a guide dog versus just use a cane?
Well, I think it really depends on your situation. I mean, for me, and it maybe sounds a little bit harsh, but you have to really consider what you're doing, in my opinion, and what you really need a dog for. A dog is a great aid when necessary, but again, there's a lot that you need to do when you have a dog. You need to be prepared to look after it. You need to be prepared to, do all sorts of things, take it out when it needs to be taken out. If you want that responsibility, if you don't, depends on where you live, depends on your environment. I don't know, Nima, you can probably add more to it since you've got a dog at the moment.
Yeah, so a guide dog and a cane are two different methods of getting around. As as we're talking about, if you have a dog, so there's a difference between what a dog does and what a cane does. So a cane, you swing it about, and it's detecting obstacles. Its purpose is to detect every obstacle. This differs from a dog in that its purpose is to avoid all the obstacles. And so you have to have pretty good orientation skills, and you have to have an ability to navigate without those landmarks and using other forms of landmarks. So you have to be pretty good at navigating without a dog to be able to navigate with a dog, if that makes some kind of sense. But the cane it provides you a lot of information that the dog doesn't, but with a dog you don't need to know a lot of that information. But sometimes you do, and that's where using a dog sometimes can be painful.
So, like, give us a few examples of those things.
Hmm. Well, for instance, when learning a new place, if you haven't navigated there before as a totally blind person, one of the things that you need to figure out is landmarks to get from point A to point whatever. So you're on a college campus, for instance, and with a cane, it's a lot easier to determine, for example, where a turnoff should be to get to your. So sometimes you have pathways and they branch off in different directions, and it's pretty easy to determine where that it happens because maybe there's a tree before you get to that spot, or maybe there's a fire hydrant, or maybe there's a, I don't know, any other kind of landmark, or a landmark that you hear based off of echolocation from tapping your cane. With a dog, you don't get those landmarks, and so now a dog can pretty easily learn routes, and you can train the dog to get you to where you need to go, and the dog kind of senses that this is where you need to go, but you have to get to that point of you knowing where to go because the dog is not a GPS. And
Right.
in order to get to where you need to go, you have to learn how to get there. And the easiest way to do that really is by using those landmarks that a dog completely misses, because somehow you have to train the dog to get to that place. And so if you're not able to get those landmarks and a dog doesn't really know where you're going, then kind of
Mhm.
a, not a very good thing. So
Well, I think the other thing also, Nim, having come from using a dog full time to back to using a cane, is if you don't keep your cane skills up, if you're just predominantly using a dog all the way through, you do actually lose a lot of that ability. You really have to push
Yeah.
yourself into it. So I always think that if you're using a dog, it's actually extremely important to keep your cane skills up because it is a completely different thing when using one or the other. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that I would agree with that, even though, like personally, I don't have a guide dog. My dad did, but I use a cane only occasionally. Um, so Kurt,
Yeah.
I want to know, why don't you get a guide dog? Like, what are your thoughts on guide dogs?
Kurt's a
So
bad pooch. That's why.
so a few things, mostly from my own experience, and also um like the way I like to travel, I love not having one specific route to a place. I like, when I have time, kind of seeing like, oh, what's over here? Let's walk down this turn and see what this is. Maybe it's a shortcut. Maybe I get totally lost for 10 minutes. Maybe I find a new place to eat. Like I love that kind of exploring. Most of the guide dogs I've seen don't like doing that. I don't know that from firsthand. It's just what I've seen. Um, but like with a cane, I, I don't know. I feel like I have enough freedom to go where I want to go. There are some annoying things like tree branches over sidewalks that I miss. Um, and I can get walking pretty fast, and so those can hurt.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I have a hard enough time taking care of myself. I'm not the sort of person who wants like that extra responsibility, especially when for me, like, I generally get where I need to go without too much trouble. And I've seen guide dogs with other people struggle the way I like to travel.
And I don't
Well,
really
that's an
agree with
interesting
that.
point.
Yeah, I don't really agree with that, but I do. I should say I agree to that to some extent. You do definitely have more spontaneity with a cane, in that you can just get up and go anytime you feel like going. You don't have to think about where you're going. You don't have to plan ahead of time. You don't have to bring what are they called? The bags that you pick up.
Oh, lovely.
Oh, yeah,
You
that's
know,
always
Yeah.
fun.
you don't have to you don't have to pre-plan ahead of time, and so there's something to be said about that. It depends on the dog, and a lot of the guide dog schools will match a dog to a person that, if you like to do I can't say the stupid word, spontaneous things, then certainly there are dogs that are much more able to handle that than, let's say, a lot of the shepherds out there, which are thriving on routine. So it really depends on the dog. It depends on the human. It also depends on how much the person utilizes the dog's training and expands on it. Because if you just, let the dog lay there all day and not do much of anything, then you
Yeah.
kind of lose out on the whole benefit of having a dog in the first place.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
wasn't I wasn't talking from any kind of firsthand experience. I've just not seen very many dogs that are like, "Hey, let's get up and go to this new place and be totally fine."
Yeah, I
Also,
think
you
I
can
was.
cozy play with your cane. That's an interesting comment here, Blind Toes.
I was just about to mention that, but the funny thing is, I think I was pretty lucky with the dogs that I had. I had very up and go at sort of dogs, and I have noticed. And it'd be interesting to see if we've got any Aussies listening to the show or watching the show. If you've got a dog, I've noticed that a lot of the dogs coming out of here at the moment are very need a lot of motivating. Let's put it that way. They're pretty sort of tame beasts that are, I don't know, not the sort of dog I want. I want to get up and go sort of pooch, so to speak. But yeah, it just seems to be the way that they're going in
Yeah.
Melbourne at the moment, which is interesting.
The thing is that I feel when it comes to canes or guide dogs in more of the low vision community, I feel that there's a lot of this stigma of, what are people going to think of me when I still have some vision and I'm using a cane or a guide dog? there's like all over social media, at least, there's a lot of people who are like, oh, they can't actually be blind, or
Yeah.
and they're just faking it and things like that, when they are visually impaired, and they do get a lot of benefit from a cane or a guide dog, but it's like that social factor that plays in, whereas, like, I guess when you have to use one, or well, you don't technically, I guess you could just not use a cane or a guide dog, but I mean, most people will feel like they don't really have a choice if their vision, if they don't have vision. So did you guys, when you guys were growing up, or whenever you lost your vision, did you also struggle with like the social side of it, like with other people and what they would think of you for using either a cane or guide dog?
So I'll come at that from a point of view of me being me, and a point of it from a trainer, having worked with a lot of low vision people that have the same thing that you're talking about.
Hmm.
And I grew up, uh, when I was real young, I had a little bit of vision, and that vision very quickly degraded thanks to the Russians. Very good, no bad. Um, and a few surgeries that didn't work out. So, but for me, I never really wanted to use a cane, but I didn't know anything about canes. I didn't grow up in this country. I grew up in Israel, in a small village, so we didn't have canes. We didn't know anything about canes. I didn't know anything about them. And when I moved to this country, I was probably about 8 years old, somewhere around there. And they tried to put a cane in my hand, and I would whack people with it. I would throw it out the bus windows.
Oh
I
no.
would snap it in half. I would literally, I would give it to people so they can beat up other people with it. I would literally find anything to do with the thing other than using it for its intended purpose. I hate the things. And I guess this is partly why I'm a guide dog user, because to this day, I hate canes. Now, does that mean I don't use them? No. I have 3 of them right outside my house here. I have 3 of them. I use them, but I hate them. And there's a lot of stigma attached to that, but for me, it wasn't about the stigma as much as it was that I don't want to have one of my hands tied and be running into all the obstacles and just being tapping the thing. And I don't like the things. Don't like them at all. But from a trainer point, I did experience a lot of what you're talking about, and there was a lot of people that really don't want that stigma of using a cane. And eventually, what you kind of have to get to is my not using a cane or a dog, is that more noticeable? Is that more affecting me more than using a cane or a dog? And when you get to that point, maybe you'll choose to use one or not. And what I mean by that is if you're walking around, especially a lot of people in the dark or different lighting situations,
Hmm.
they struggle. Well, when you do that, are you tripping?
Yeah.
Are you running into things? Are you hurting yourself? And more frankly, are you making yourself look silly
Yep.
because you have to walk up so close to things and you're running into things anyway?
Hmm.
And if that's the case, then why not use a cane? Because you already look silly. Frankly,
Yeah.
you're already bringing that attention to yourself. You can't escape it. So, I mean, do you hurt yourself in the process, or do you look silly walking around with a cane and eventually forget the fact that you look silly? Because most people probably don't even notice.
Yeah.
I also find that when I do use a cane, people are more willing or like more understanding of that you can't see and you might need help, even if they might also be thinking, well, she
Hmm.
can see something, and they might be confused about like how much vision somebody has, but they're more open to helping out, and generally are nicer, I think.
Yeah, I've seen that from working with students who have low vision, and they'll go up and try to read a menu and are blocking the line, and they'll ask a question that just off of hand seems like a stupid, silly question, like what's on this menu or whatever,
Hmm.
or where is the menu, and like from a low vision perspective, it's completely understandable. You didn't see it. The board has a lot of glare, whatever. But from somebody who doesn't know that you have low vision, it's a stupid question. Whereas if you had a cane, it might be a little bit more obvious to the fact that,
Yeah.
hey, you actually have a vision impairment.
And
Yeah, I
actually,
mean,
just looking here at the comments, which is quite interesting. Yeah, this is the whole problem with well, either having a dog or a cane, is that you're always going to have one hand that
Yep.
is going to be occupied, and It's a very unfortunate thing. There's no
Yeah.
real way around it, but it's unfortunate. But I completely agree with you, Nimmer. At the end of the day, if you're going to be struggling without one, why wouldn't you use one? You know,
Right.
it's something that you do have to consider.
At least then people have some sort of an idea and aren't just wondering like what's going on.
Here's an
Yeah.
interesting comment here, just real quick. I always struggled with juggling diaper bags, purse, and two little kids, all with a cane.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Wow.
You know, I think whatever that situation is, there's ways to handle that, but I wouldn't want to be doing that. But I wouldn't, personally, I don't really want to be using a cane at all, which is why we are looking at the cane replacements, like strap.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to get into that in just a minute, but
Yeah.
I remember when little Pablo was around, when he was a baby, I would have the diaper bag and then like the car seat, because of course like over here they don't have sidewalks, they don't have buses, you got to use like Uber for most things, and like most parents will just leave their car seat in the car, but I have to take it with me. And so I remember using like a little cart to pull like all the stuff that I need, and then hold little Pablo. And so that's kind of how I did it. But then again, I most of the time I didn't need a cane, so I can imagine how difficult that is. Wow.
So you essentially haven't got any hands free, or wouldn't have any hands free at all.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
But I know that they also have those special types of strollers where you actually pull it behind you.
Yeah.
Now, I
And
was going to
I've
actually
seen
mention
those.
that because a friend of mine, when their kids were very young and I used to babysit their kids, I used to use one of those, the pull-along strollers behind you, so that if anything happened to me, the stroller wouldn't be affected. You know what I mean? So it was
Yeah.
behind me. So if I was going to hit something, the stroller wasn't
Yep.
going to hit it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to do that. And there are
Yeah.
like those carriers too that a lot of people use, those hands-free
Yeah, we used to have the
carriers
pouches.
and,
Yeah, the little pouch on your stomach type thing where you carry the baby in a pouch, so to speak. Whatever they call those things,
Yeah.
or whatever the...
Yeah,
just in
that-
case you
that
didn't
works.
get tired of carrying the baby around before, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that works around the house, going out, like,
Yeah.
but not really when you have to go out on like the car, because you have to have a car seat, and then Uber won't take
Oh,
you
right.
if you
Yeah.
don't have a car seat either. So yeah, but
So the Ubers over there, they don't actually have a car seat in the trunk or anything. You actually have to bring your own.
yeah. Wait,
Wow.
what is
They
it
have
like
car
there?
seats in Australia for
They
the
have
Uber?
car
Yeah.
seats in
We've had car seats, Yeah.
Here we have a comment from Thomas. Says, "Yeah, I just put it's tough. I put a carrier on my back and on my front, and still walk with my cane. Yeah, that is tough, there, Thomas.
Hey, wow.
Wow, yeah. So I want to know what other aids, like physical, not with smartphones yet, not with apps yet, but are there any things that
Physical.
you guys have tried, like the Suno band and the smart cane, the
Yep,
We
I've
Walk
tried them all.
cane?
Yeah, I've tried them all as well, and to be perfectly frank, none of them have really worked for me.
So tell us about like your experience with them and why they didn't work for you guys.
Okay, so the Suno band, it is a little band for anybody who doesn't know that you wear on your wrist, and has a sensor, an ultrasonic sensor. And when you're walking along, if your hand's in the right position and there's an item, an obstacle or whatever in front of you, especially more head height, chest height, things that maybe a cane might miss, it might hopefully catch those items. But you have to have your hand in the right position, so don't think about moving your hand in a different position or whatever,
Yeah.
because it probably wouldn't work. Also, they don't always detect things. And the things they do detect aren't all in the same distance. And in fact, they don't give you distance.
Oh.
You just kind of have to really guess about the distance.
That's helpful.
They give you sort of a distance, like they'll say, well, this is going to detect things within 4 feet or 3 feet, but that depends on the size of the object, in my experience. So a little branch won't be within 3 feet or 4 feet. It might be within 6 inches.
That doesn't give you a lot of warning.
No, it doesn't give you a lot of warning.
Right.
Things like this also have difficulties, like the Suno band. You don't want to get it wet, so
Oh.
don't even think about being caught in a rainstorm.
That's what I heard about the WeWalk too, isn't it? You
The
can't
WeWalk
get-
is similar, and the problem with those things is a cane is already is a thing that you have to move around, and you're using on your wrist and all that. Once you get adjusted to it, your wrists grow stronger, and it's great.
Yeah.
But now all of a sudden you're adding more weight to a cane. And if you're walking anything a little bit longer distance, that weight actually begins to matter.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I can't even imagine.
And it's a similar thing with those sensors. It's a similar thing that I don't think those sensors actually do much of anything useful, really.
Yeah, but the
they might-
problem though, Nimmer, is those sensors, you have to actually have them perfectly lined up to pick up what you're supposedly going to pick up. Now, you're not always going to be, well, you're hardly ever going to have it lined up. You know what I mean? Kind of pointless. I don't know. For me, I've just found them completely useless, to be honest. The cane is great for anything that's below waist height,
Yep.
but otherwise, then, yeah, if you've got a head height object, yeah, you might collect it. It is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, and
You
like
know.
sometimes echolocation is good enough for me to be like,
Yeah.
oh, I have to duck. Especially I use canes with like more echoey tips, like metal or ceramic, and that
Yeah,
can
so do I.
help.
Yeah.
But it doesn't 100% let you avoid those things.
No.
No.
I would love to see replacements to the cane. I would love to see physical devices that actually make an improvement.
Yeah.
So why
But
don't
so
we?
far,
So that I think that's a great segue into Strap. Why don't you tell one of you guys, tell us about Strap?
yeah. So just to preface this, we haven't seen it. We actually haven't played with it yet, and so I can't really tell you how good or bad it is. But its purpose is it has a lot of different sensors on it. It's a strap that you wear around your chest, and it has a variety of sensors. So it has ultrasonic, but it also has radar, and it has some other kind of sensor, depth or something. I don't remember what all the sensors that it has, but its purpose is to provide the wearer an idea of what they're walking towards and the ability, for example, to walk in a straight line. And it indicates this information through haptics, through vibrations. So this way, if you're walking in a noisy environment, which a lot of times happens, you don't have to rely on being able to hear something to be able to know this is what's going on or whatever in front of you. And the idea is that it helps you detect cracks in the sidewalk or things at head height equally, and you're not having to use a cane. That's the idea.
Now, I can tell you that if we do get the opportunity to test it out, and I'm sure you boys will be in agreement, we will definitely be very keen to put
Absolutely.
it through its paces.
I pre-ordered one just to see, how it goes.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, you might be the first one to get one.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah,
definitely
so-
be looking forward to your review on that.
Yeah, so we will hopefully be able to get our hands on one. We're trying to get one for the podcast to demo, and we'll definitely let you know. And I know Kurt has pre-ordered one as well. And if you are wanting to pre-order one, we do have a promo code that is in the show description that is up there for BTG supporters. So there's a little bit of a description from the Strap team about what Strap is, and as well as a promo code. So definitely take a look at that in the description, and you can pre-order this device that is actually normally selling for $750 at a current price of $250, but you don't have to pay the $250 right now. You just pay $50 up front, and then the rest of it gets charged once the device ships towards the end of the summer. So definitely think about that. But again, I can't tell you that you should or shouldn't go out and run out and get this thing. We haven't tried it, but from what they say that it's able to do, it seems like something that is innovative and something that we haven't had yet.
Well, that's what I was just about to mention, Nim. It is innovative, and we've had a lot of things come through in recent past about glasses, and maybe we can touch on that in a little while, but we've had a lot of glasses come through. We've never had really something like this. I think it's important maybe for listeners and viewers to just give it a bit of a shot rather than criticizing the product without trying it, which is what I'm finding is happening a lot in this country. People are very against the product, and I'm always turning around and saying, well, how can you be against it if you've never tried it? I don't get it.
Yeah.
Give it a chance.
And I should say that, from my perspective, just for the audience to know, the reason that I'm excited about this kind of a product is because I think the cane does need replacing, personally. The cane has been around for a few hundred years, and now we have cars that zoom along the road, drive themselves. We have planes that fly themselves, land themselves, all these things. And the blind people are still, the best method that we have for getting around is poking things with a stick.
Yeah.
Essentially, that's what it is. And I know some people will hate that description, but that's essentially the best solution that we have for navigating around obstacles. We still have a hand tied up. We still have to, not have any, not have any clearance at anything above, I don't know, stomach height, maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
And I see a big problem with all of that. So I'm excited for these kind of solutions. Do I think it's going to replace the cane? No, I don't.
Right.
But it is still
Probably
worth
not
trying
the
and
first
helping
generation.
them out. Exactly, not the first generation.
Well,
Yes.
And so what I'm excited about is there are a lot of times with a cane, people in public don't understand that the idea of a cane is to run into things, right? So I'll be walking down the sidewalk and they'll be like, there's stairs, there's a street curb, there's a crack in the sidewalk, there's a pole. And, people are panicking. And it's like, because they don't understand that a cane is supposed to hit those things, so I know they're there. If I have something that makes me walk a little more like a sighted person, probably people won't bother me as much. That's what I'm most excited about, frankly, with this. It's sad to put it in those terms, but there we are.
And can I just make? Sorry, Carrie. I just wanted to make a comment about a comment that's been put down here in your list of comments here about deep enough pockets to try it. I actually think that for a blindness product being $250 with a promo, that's basically the price of 3 canes.
Yeah.
Now it's quite easy. I quite easily snap a cane every couple of months or so. So I'd probably go through 3 canes in a year or so.
Well, over here, that's a lot more canes. Especially.
I can tell you, canes over here are quite expensive. They're $80 to $90 a cane here if you want to get a decent one. So.
Well, here it just depends, but I find that the majority of people just buy the $20 to $30 cane. So
yeah,
I haven't seen a $20 cane in a long time.
Yeah, I wish I could.
Good.
If you can send me a $20 cane, I'd love that.
I mean, I do.
I see them
probably
for about
like it.
between 40, 30 to 50. I haven't seen a 20.
And the other thing is that
cool.
with having a cane as well, for me anyway, I want a cane that's relatively light.
Yep.
Unfortunately, now I could definitely get a cane that's like $40-$50, but that thing weighs a ton.
Yeah.
And like Nema said earlier, it doesn't actually matter, because if I go for a 4, 5, 6 kilometre walk, what's that, about 3 miles, whatever it is, I don't want a cane weighing me down too much. It does get painful after a while. So, yeah.
So really quick, what kind of canes do you guys use?
So I've got a lot of different ones. I tend to use canes from a company called Revolution, and I tend to like their canes a lot. I am the least fan of the Ambutex. I think their
they're
quality
awful.
has just gone down the
They used to
drain.
be good. They used to be great. Now they're just terrible.
Yeah,
They're heavy.
They are heavy, yeah. And so I use Revolution canes, and I also use the NFB canes.
Well, it's
I
funny
think
you
that
should
the
say that.
NFB
The
canes are
NFB
really
cane's
light.
an excellent cane, and unfortunately over here it's very hard to get the NFB, but I've thankfully got a friend who sends me the canes, but they are excellent.
Yeah,
NFB
and
canes.
they do have folding models, and I do like the NFB canes.
Yeah, that's
because they're light and they're
That's
just
my primary cane.
The only problem I find with the NFB ones, unfortunately, is that they do, where the joints are, they do actually start to peel after a very short while, which is annoying. Don't know if they managed to fix that or not.
Well,
but
Yeah,
they
my
might do
problem
that.
with NFB canes is like if they are the straight canes, I want it folding. I haven't seen the folding NFB canes.
oh no, the folding ones are good.
Except
they're
for the telescopic canes, and then they just break. Like I've seen a lot of the straight canes, at least, like they just snap if you run
Right.
into something so hard.
So the thing about the straight canes is they're not meant to be durable. You can get a free one every 6 months. The straight canes are meant to be you use them and then you break, and that's your $20 cane. You want to get the collapsing or the folding. Again, like that's the price of the lightweight on the NFB side is they're going to break more, and you just have to be willing to, have a spare one handy. The metal tips, they're my favorite tips,
Yeah,
but
me
you
too.
better be willing to replace those tips if you walk a lot, a couple times a month, because if those tips wear out and you're in the middle of a walk and you don't have a spare, you're in trouble. Like,
or just fall off, as they've known to happen.
Or
And somebody
fall off.
says,
Yeah.
I got one that flew off. Like I'm like, oh, I
Yeah.
hit something,
Yeah.
and then boom.
somebody here is, and I'm really interested. I would love to know how you do this. It says here, so the cost of these devices worry me. I'm excited at the choices that are happening, and the same cane can last for a couple of years. I'm
Whoa.
interested. I've never had a cane last me a couple of years. Now, I do walk more than probably the average person, but I can't say that I've ever had a cane last me more than a couple of months, let alone a couple of years. If I get it lasting 6 months, that's a really beat up cane for me.
yeah,
So to say that it's
I'm
lasting
lucky
2
the same
years,
here
or-
too.
that's crazy.
Yeah, wow.
yeah, that's about.
I mean,
where
we
am.
usually have an issue here with people deciding to step on them, and that seems to happen more often
Ooh.
more often
Yep.
than not. So, yeah, I don't know. I've
Blind
never had a
toes,
cane
having
last
a
me 2
cane
years.
or a dog is also good with a pickup line. No, I don't agree with that, but maybe.
No, I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah, I mean, give it a try, I guess, if you want.
I usually find having a dog or a cane quite handy, especially if you're getting on public transit. It usually means that you can get a seat more easily. But
Yeah.
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 So, do you know if strap is something that you wear? I'm guessing that it's something you wear outside of your clothes. Is that right?
Yes,
Like on
and that's
top of-
because the
okay.
sensors would have to
Yeah.
see outside, so
Yeah.
it would be wearing
That-
outside. So there is that, and I know people are
makes sense.
well, it makes it look bad, or it affects how you look. Oh, well, I don't know. To me, maybe a strap is better than a long cane or a guide dog full of hair. I don't know.
I mean, I would have to try it, but what do you think about if it becomes a cane replacement, and considering that the cane is or a guide dog is kind of a symbol of having a visual disability, what do you think people will do going forward?
Well, I actually think that if it does become a bit of a cane replacement, it's probably going to, in my opinion anyway, it might cause a bit more discussion amongst people that you come across potentially as to how the
Yeah.
hell do you manage to do that? I think normally when I walk around and I'm using a cane, people are fairly, well, you don't generally get asked, well, I don't generally get asked too much. I just sort of wander along and, whatever. And when I was using a dog, people would probably ask me about the dog. I think this would be a new thing for people to talk about potentially when you come across them if they want to ask questions, I guess.
Yeah, and I think there's two sides of the whole flip the coin. So yeah, cane is sort of the status symbol of being blind, but it's also the status symbol of discrimination of being blind.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that there's still to this day quite a lot of misconceptions about blind people and the way that we navigate, the way we do things, and we get
Yep.
around, and what we are or not able to do. There's a lot of misconceptions, a lot of discrimination, some that you touch on yourself in this channel. And I think to be able to actually get on a bus and not have to have that conversation of what's your dog's name, do you need help? Those two questions would be wonderful to not have asked, whether you're using a cane or a cane or a dog. Maybe somebody can ask about my watch or about my whatever, my shirt, or about my.
Well, I'm sure they would just
I don't know.
ask, like, what the heck is that thing that you're wearing?
Yeah.
Right.
and they may, yeah, and that's the thing.
And they
I don't
may.
know that this really changes that. But
Yeah.
but if we did have a device that did change that, I think then we'd start having a little bit more conversations that other people might be having. I don't know.
Yeah. I see a comment here saying it would look like a GoPro. I don't know if I agree with that so much, but
It might.
But
Well, I do wear my phone on my forehead, so it might, like a chest strap, like a camera strap or something.
well,
It's
wearable
possible.
technology now it's getting more normal. Like
Well,
when they first came out with
yeah.
like the virtual reality headsets and like
Well,
the
that's right. You look at how
augmented,
many
it's
people
like
have headsets on now, and they wear those aftershocks or the Apple, AirPods or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's quite common
Have
now.
a cane for 7 years. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we need to have a podcast on how
7
do you use a
years?
cane.
7 years?
Wow.
Well-
I'm
Maybe I just don't.
astounded. Wow.
Yeah, maybe I just don't know how to use a cane because I can
Sheesh.
tell you my canes don't last me 7 months, let alone 7 years.
That-
7 years.
yeah, it could last me 7 years because I don't use it that much. But I
Wow.
mean,
If you're
I'm
actually using it, I don't
every day,
understand how.
yeah.
I think in 7 years I've gone through maybe 10 canes. There is no way that I could not make that happen.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Wow.
I mean, you get it stuck in something and the thing breaks. Someone steps on it, the thing breaks. The tape peels off. The tips fly off. I don't understand how you have one for 7 years.
Yeah.
I really
Yeah.
can't. I don't know.
And especially when I was living in the countryside, if you're going over rough terrain or whatever, wow. I don't know.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But that's cool. You're lucky. Maybe strap will last you 7 years too. You never know.
So, what other things do you guys use besides a cane or a guide dog when you go out and just
Well, I
navigate
guess over
around?
the last sort of 20 years, now I have to say this is one thing that's definitely sort of changed a lot of things. I have always had very good directional sense, thankfully. I know where I'm going generally pretty well and never really had to use GPS, but I guess that's something that's sort of come across in the last little while. Am I a fan of GPS? To be honest, I actually am not. And this is going to sound weird. I actually think it makes us a lot lazier, to be
Yeah.
honest.
I agree.
That's just my personal opinion. I actually think that in some ways it makes blind people so reliant on this technology that if it goes down, then they're completely lost, literally. I don't know. That's just my thoughts. I actually think it has made us a little bit lazier. It doesn't make you learn the environment as well.
And it doesn't have to be like that, but
No.
I actively make sure when I'm walking. Sometimes I have it, especially if I'm in a new place or I want to,
Yeah.
know
Yeah,
like what's around me. But I don't like using it for turn-by-turn directions. I like using it for what's the streets coming up, what are the addresses I'm by. Maybe it tells me what businesses I'm walking by, but I don't really want it giving me turn-by-turn directions. I kind of like to figure out how the address system works and maybe have a list of turn-by-turn directions in another app if it's a place I don't know very well. But yeah, I think a GPS is a good secondary tool if you are already comfortable getting lost in problem solving.
So that's really, really interesting because I think what's so funny.
Sorry, somebody here says I'm still using the same. Mahio says still using a cane for 16 years.
Oh my.
Whoa!
Yeah, so
Wow.
when it comes
Alright.
to GPS, I think that as a society, this is a societal problem, not just like the
Yeah.
blind
Yeah.
community problem. Because I remember my mom when there was no GPS, she would look at a map and she would, figure things out. And now she's completely reliant on GPS and turn-by-turn navigation. Where do I go? Like people don't know the city anymore or where they live anymore
It's funny you
because of
say that,
GPS.
Carrie. My partner, when she drives around, she even uses the GPS in the local area. And I'm like, come on, surely you know that in a couple of 100 meters, you're going to turn left. It's been like that since forever. Like,
Exactly.
I don't get it. I don't know.
I mean, I
it's
don't know how
weird.
many times my brother, my mom has gone to my sister's house, and they still tend to just put put the GPS,
Put the GPS on.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And so I don't know. I feel like that's not just for the blind community. That's more of society as a whole. We've
Right.
gotten lazy and we've gotten very attached to having that direction. Just tell us what to do, and we'll follow you.
I think for the blind community, it's extra though, because there's a lot of conditioning you have to overcome of like getting lost is a problem, or if you're in an unfamiliar area, then this is really bad if you're blind. Like that's what society tells us. And so when you're already needing to overcome that, then unless you already have training, I think a GPS can be more of a liability than anything.
I
So,
tend to think this
uh,
is this way about Google. So how many people use Google searches?
Yeah.
Like, instead of remembering facts, how many people just Google it?
like
I,
everyone now.
I think it's the same about anything, any technology that we now
Hmm.
have, computers in general, storage. How much storage do you have now? Like, how much do you, I don't know. Uh, I
Like
think
simple
GPS is a tool.
calculations, even.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I had a story of when I went to Walmart and the power went out and they tried to tell me they couldn't sell me something because their power was out and they couldn't do the math to sell me the product. And then I got into it with the guy because it was like bought a product $5.99 and then the guy was trying to charge me 13 and I was arguing with him and he told me no, it's because of the tax.
Oh.
And so then I was trying to get him to do the basic math of okay, what's 10% of $5 and he kept insisting it was 13.
Oh my god.
But I think the GPS can be a really valuable tool.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think for me at least, it goes some way to providing information that we lack. And I think the biggest problem that faces blind people is a lack of knowledge, is a lack of information. And I see this to this day. A lot of times developers will develop something and say, we need to develop this tool to guide people here or guide people there. How do you know where I want to go? What if I don't choose to go to the places that you want me to go?
Yeah.
What if I want to go to the strip clubs? Are they going to really develop these navigation solutions to take me to the strip club? I'm not saying for you audience that I do want to go to the strip club. But as a blind person, should I not have that right to go where I want, when I want, how I want, just as anybody else does? And
Yeah.
the problem
Yeah.
that we have isn't that we can't navigate. It isn't that we don't have an interest in navigating. It's that
Yeah.
because it's so difficult to do that we don't do it. So for example, like if I want to go, find my gate at the airport, why do blind people, a lot of them, seek assistance at the airport? It's because we don't have the information. We don't have the knowledge that's on those signs. We don't have the arrows
Right.
that point us where to go. It's not that we can't actually navigate an airport or, going shopping, going to the mall, just window shopping. Why don't blind people like malls? And I haven't met very many blind people, totally blind people that like malls. Why? It
You
isn't
have to-
because
yeah.
blind people don't like shopping. Because maybe some do, some don't. I don't know. But it isn't that. No, it's because we don't have access to that information.
And that's one of the biggest things that we actually miss out on. And when you think about it, we can use a GPS app like the Google Maps or whatever one that you choose to use. But there's a lot of stuff that we miss out on. The signs. You
Yep.
think of how many things that you walk along, and it might be completely useless information to a lot of sighted people, but they can still see it.
Yeah.
We don't
Yeah.
get that advantage,
They have the
unfortunately.
instantaneous ability to just look at it and see if it is relevant,
Correct. And then
I
they can
mean-
dismiss it if they want to dismiss it, or they can use it, or, it might just be even something as stupid as an ad. It might be just be an ad, but we don't even get the chance to dismiss that. It's just automatically, oh, well, it's not of interest to us because we don't see it. We
Ooh,
don't know
it's
it.
But that's why I
interesting.
like GPS, because GPS, as much as I think it's not necessarily doing everybody a good service, and somebody here says, I still treasure my Braille compass. I love compasses.
Yeah.
I love them. But the reason that I find GPS valuable is because it gives you that information that you do miss. For instance, you walk up to a street. What is that street? What's that street name? You walk past a shop. What is that shop?
Yep.
You walk whatever. I don't use it necessarily to get directions from point A to point B to point C. I might, but I don't necessarily use it for that. What I use it is to know what's around me.
What's it there?
And that,
Yep.
as a blind person, I miss out on. I don't get to see those signs.
Yeah. And
I think
Go
as
ahead.
a low vision person, I can see sometimes like, oh, there is a sign there, and then I can pull something out so that I can read it. But
Yeah.
when you're totally blind, you don't even know that there's a sign there.
Yeah.
And that's where things like the Envision glasses, and frankly, when you create a product for blind people, you really should do a lot of testing with blind people, because The way that product works, a lot of the times you have to stop and point and take a snapshot to take a picture to get the text read. And when you capture something, it reads it really well. For the most part, it does actually read it well. It works great. But how do you know where the text is? How do you know there's a sign? How do you know what direction to point that camera in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with GPS apps specifically, I'm seeing a trend I really don't like of going away from telling us what we're passing and what's around us towards just these very limited turn-by-turn directions.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. That Nearby Explorer app, that one we've railed on our podcast, it's unfortunately disappeared. And we've now replaced it with this app called Bad Maps.
Bad Maps.
Good Maps. And it's just a complete shame.
So, what are some apps that you guys use when you are navigating?
Well, I used to use Nearby Explorer, but sadly, as Nima just said, that's died at its final death.
Well,
I still use it.
I still
you
use
can
it
still
too.
you can still use it, but it's
For a while
gonna die
anyways.
eventually. I don't know. There's not, unfortunately. Well, not unfortunately. I use Android. There's just nothing really great on Android except for maybe Google Maps. But again, as you said before, Kurt, that doesn't really give you a huge amount of information as to what's around. There's just nothing really that great on Android for me, anyway. At the
There's
moment,
nothing that great on either platform. Nearby Explorer was by far the best. The closest that you probably get to is maybe a blind square if you happen to be in a place that Foursquare maps
unfortunately,
are
it doesn't. They haven't updated Foursquare here for a couple of years. So it's
good.
pretty
Or possibly a Lazarillo, which
that's okay.
again isn't really where
bad.
Nearby Explorer was, but it's probably the best at what it does. So I use Nearby Explorer, I use Google Maps. Those are my go-tos. And until Nearby Explorer dies, I will keep using Nearby Explorer.
Yeah,
There's just
pretty
nothing
much.
else.
No.
There's just nothing else that even comes close to what it does.
So, what do you want the navigation app to do?
Well, basically, all they need to do is create, whoever runs or ran Nearby Explorer, if we were able to grab the code, you pretty much just utilize that in a brand new app. It just needs to allow a user to pretty much have information that they want at their fingertips. They can either turn it on or turn it off and have so much control over it. And it's pretty much what I think a lot of us want from an app like that, is the choice to be able to turn on and turn off what you want. What you find useful.
So, what do you guys find useful? Like, what kind of information or feedback?
Well,
from
for
these
me,
apps
it was well, let's discussed already. You could find out what's around you. If you wanted to, you could have it read out every single number that you're going along on a street. Now, I certainly wouldn't want that. I mean, I don't want it reading every number out. But, you could have it read out landmarks, any businesses that you go by that might be useful. And you had control over that. You could make it... you could program it so it could tell you the quickest way to get home from wherever you were. Just stuff like that. There's all sorts of things you could do with Nearby Explorer. Too many to go through here, but
So I like its ability to determine to tell you intersections as you're approaching them.
Yeah.
Not when you've passed them by 20 feet, but when you're actually approaching them.
Oh, and bus stops. I forgot about
Right.
that. Transit stuff. That's
I
always
like
useful.
it when identifies transit. I like it when
Not when
it
you've gone
identifies,
past it, though.
No. I like it when it identifies businesses, and particularly, this is really important, the side of the street that a business is on.
Yeah.
It's not enough to simply say the business is here or in 20 feet. You have
Especially
to
if you're on a wide road
street.
and it's hard to cross a wide road if you know that there's no traffic lights nearby. You want to know where that business is
Yeah.
before you get there. Yeah.
I would like to know, any trails that may be coming up as I'm walking. So there's a trail that maybe branches off and goes in a different direction, like hiking trails or anything like that. There's a lot of information that we just don't get that I would like to be able to get. Various categories of businesses as you pass by. One of the features of Nearby Explorer is a feature called GeoBeam. And so when you do request directions to go somewhere, you can use this feature to literally pretty much get right to the door. It was very accurate in and you could point your phone and it would beep when your phone was facing in the direction of the business. So you could easily tell what side of the street it's on. and the beeps got higher pitched as you got closer to the door, to the business. And so then it was very easy to determine, am I on the right side? Am I on the right side of the parking lot? Am I walking towards it? Am I walking away from it? That was a very handy feature.
Yeah.
These things don't exist in other apps. Nearby Explorer also let you do something called watch. So if I go hiking, at the beginning of the hiking trail, I can set a point of where I'm currently at. Say, okay, watch this place. Then as I'm walking, it'll tell me where my place is as a general, like a fly-by direction. So,
Well, I think they call
this
it like
place is
points of
behind you,
interest.
or
Yeah, you'd set it like
this
a
place
point
is
of.
behind you by
Yeah.
a kilometer or whatever. And so if you were a crow and you took off flying, you could fly in that direction and get there.
Yeah.
Obviously, when you're hiking, that's not really possible all the time. But at least you know this is where my place is and how far away from it, and generally the direction that I need to go to get back to that place. So these things don't really exist in other apps. And if they do exist, they're very limited in what they're able to do. I know this is probably boring some people, but that's just kind of what it is.
Now, Alice asks in the comments, have we tried Microsoft's Soundscape? I personally have not, no.
I have, because naturally I've tried every navigation app out there, pretty much. As long as I hear of it, I try it.
If it's made by Microsoft, I'm sure it works well.
It doesn't. So here's the cool part about Soundscapes. It actually does a pretty good job at telling you what side of the street landmarks and intersections and things are at if you're wearing something like bone conduction headphones. It does a good job at that. What it doesn't do a good job at is telling you all the intersections that you're passing by, because some of them it doesn't recognize. It tells you a lot of, I don't even know what they are. They're parking lots, but I forget how it announces them. It announces something like unnamed road or unnamed something. I don't know how exactly, but it gives a lot of information that really isn't relevant. And it skips out on telling you a lot of buildings nearby because it thinks that you only want to know about the primary ones.
Yeah.
So how does a company decide for me what building I want to know what it is? I don't like that. So I'm not really a fan of Soundscapes just because of that reason, that it's really limiting in what the categories that it tells you places are. Like, I think it does announce bus stops, but it doesn't announce different types of points of interest, or it announces parks, but it doesn't announce churches or something like that. There's different categories that it doesn't actually announce, and there's no way to toggle that to say, no, I do want that.
So what would you guys want to have in an ideal GPS navigation app?
I
Well,
want
I'd say
Nearby
this
Explorer
about-
back.
Yeah, I generally say this about a lot of apps, and some people may agree or disagree, but I like to have options. And I like to be able to have the ability to turn certain things on or off. And to be perfectly frank, yeah, if we could have something like a Nearby Explorer, to me that'd be ideal, but
Yeah.
that's really all I can say about that, unfortunately.
I can tell you what I don't want too. I don't want all of this effort put on like indoor navigation in a few select buildings, and that seems like a wasted resource to me.
So why is that?
Because it's only, like Nearby Explorer did this, Good Maps did this, or in certain buildings where the system is set up, there's supposed to be like beacons inside the building where it can guide you to like different rooms in the building or whatever. And that seems to be the focus in the blindness navigation apps these days. And it's only rolling out to like a few specific buildings. And it's not really what we need, I don't think.
The majority of blind people aren't impacted by it, so it would take a really long time to roll it out on mass scale. And let's say you did get it rolled out. I think it's more important for us to have labels on the products themselves than it is on where the restroom is in a building, because everybody gets lost in a big building and everybody has to ask directions to a specific place in a building. Sighted or not, I've seen people ask for directions to get to restrooms or get to whatever. But if we don't have the outdoor support, we can't even get to the building. And if we do manage to get to the building, then we have a hard time finding the door. And if we do get into the building, then we still need somebody to read out the products that are completely inaccessible. So it doesn't really solve much of a problem. I'm not saying that indoor navigation wouldn't be great, because in places like airports, it would actually be pretty useful.
Oh,
Be
sure.
able to navigate to a specific gate or whatever. I'm not saying that wouldn't be good. But there's not an easy way to roll that out in mass scale, and you still need to solve the problem of getting to X, Y, or Z first.
And like you mentioned, there's just such a limited amount of buildings that it's compatible with. And
Yeah.
another thing I've noticed is they're on multiple apps.
Well, the
So
other
one
thing also,
building,
Kerry, is that
yeah.
over here we've got a company, a friend of mine works for a company where they're doing that sort of indoor technology, so they're trying to set all this up. But then you also have to convince businesses,
Yes.
and this takes a long time. I mean, it's taken them literally 2 years to roll this out in like 3 or 4 buildings, because you have to
Yes.
convince people and sighted people and businesses that it's actually worthwhile.
Yes, exactly.
So,
And I
you
mean,
know.
it's such an on a limited scale because of
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
and again, it's on different platforms, different apps. So how do you know which app has what building? And
That's
then there's
exactly right.
Yeah.
and then there's also the fact that, like what Marco's saying, their business model is based on having it free for the end user, but the businesses have to pay. And
Pay.
so
Yeah.
convincing businesses to do that is really difficult.
Well, and as a
Um,
business, how do you know which one to pay for?
Right.
that
Exactly. If you've got 3 of
too.
them coming at you, which one's the best? And also, as a business owner, I'd be thinking, well, how is this going to increase my, help my business out? How am I going to get more clientele out of this? Is it really going to
Because
make any
as a
difference?
business, at the end of the day, you're still having to help out that blind person find those products when they walk in your door.
Yep.
Hmm.
Exactly.
So, oh yeah, they can find the restroom or the specific place in the building, great, but they can't find the products on the shelf.
Yeah.
What would be great is if like a larger company actually did. I don't know how it would be done, but so that they could do it on a more on a wider scale. But
Yeah.
also, what do you guys think about having this type of technology, like in smart cities? Because that's what they're kind of building now, right? What if they implemented that during the building process?
Hey, that's great, but it excludes so many people, and if they're using different technologies for different cities, then you
Mm.
still
Yeah.
run into the same problem of, you know,
Well,
people
that's
not being able
exactly
to
what I
use
was
it,
going to
not
say.
knowing
You
which
still have
technology is
to.
being used.
You still have to be using the actual technology that works in that particular place. And if you don't happen to want to use it or you're not using it, then yeah.
And let's think
it
about
hard
the
again.
U.S. How many people in the U.S. Now, other countries actually have this a lot worse, but how many people in the U.S. live in smart cities?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that
Here's
would
a comment.
definitely not happen here either, to be honest. There's definitely
is-
that wouldn't happen here.
Sarah Williams, I love this question here because this is the kind of thinking that I really want to address here. Would an app that pairs with a smart cane, smart white cane tip, help to provide more information? Yes and no. You can definitely do some things with a cane tip. Now, if let's say you decided, well, hopefully the tip's cheap and can handle some abuse. But let's say the tip was great, and you were able to provide information that was on, I don't know, some streets or whatever, what street you're coming up to, or a little bit ahead of the cane. Oh, here's an obstacle, or somehow angle that sensor so it sees at head height. Okay, maybe, but you're running into the same issue of, I think, we don't need something to fix the cane. We need something to get rid of the cane. The cane is old tech. The cane needs to be gone. It needs to be at least an option that there are other tools that make your life easier. And I don't think that anything that attaches to a cane does that. First, you're adding more weight to the cane. Even if the sensor was the lightest sensor in the world, is it going to work in water? Or after a bunch of dog poop gets on the cane?
Right.
Even if it does that, what happens when the tip wears out or flies off?
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. I mean,
Right.
where do you put this sensor? Like, is it actually
Yeah.
a smart idea to put it in the tip? Because, I mean, that's going to be the first thing that dies on a cane.
Yeah, like
ultimately.
I was at a campfire on Friday night, and I put my cane at the edge of the fire pit to know where the fire was for obvious reasons. And, is a sensor going to be able to withstand that kind of heat? Like,
Yeah. I do tend to agree. Sorry, Carrie. I do
No, go
tend to
ahead.
agree in the sense that I think we need to actually think of ways of moving away from necessarily the cane, and I really think that we need to think about the cane as an aid, and we need to come up with new ways of actually being able to get around and not just rely on the cane. That's just me.
So now, actually, somebody sent me a concept. I wonder if they're also part of the team, um, but they sent me something about a concept that they're working on or thinking about called Tactile. And so they sent me a little blurb, and I'm going to read it to you guys. Um, the idea works like this. Number one, Tactile pavement will contain an RFID chip. Number two, your cane has an RFID sensor. And number three, the tip of the cane where the sensor is reads the UUID, I don't know what that is, of the pavement. And your phone uses that information to generate data about your trip. Like location, distance to the next tile, voice UI integration, etc. Let's say you're on a college campus and you want to go to the market located next to the admissions building. In this scenario, the campus already has the built-in pavements with RFID placed. Using Arcane's microphone slash connection to the phone, you tell the cane, quote, take me to the campus market. The cane interacts with the pavement that you are currently standing on, and the voice UI in the cane activates and seamlessly leads you to the market. Is that the whole thing? Yeah, I think that's the whole thing. So, what do you guys think? I'd like your reaction to this concept.
No.
I
yeah, me as well. I'm skeptical for, number one, how do you standardize that across everywhere? And the other thing is, the problem isn't getting to the market. The problem is knowing all the things we're passing along the way.
And I don't understand. Is this? I guess this is a completely different cane. So is somebody going to have to get a different cane or this cane?
Well, they could
tip
probably
and,
create a cane tip. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, but
How,
but
can you
does
guarantee that the blind person's
microphone
going to
on
walk
there?
over?
Yeah, that too. The pavements, the pavement. Based on the picture, it's like a block of pavement, like kind of the ones that you go to on the
On the
corners
streets
of
corners or
the
something.
on the corners.
See, I can understand all of that, but how are they going to standardise that, number one, across the world? They can barely standardise the right sort of traffic lights to use anywhere, let alone standardising a piece of pavement that's going to be used in various different countries.
And
I just don't see this taking off.
I can't imagine the implementation of like this big piece of pavement.
Yeah.
Yeah, but as an image has said before, it also requires that you actually walk over. So what happens if I accidentally decide, there's a bunch of people walking on that piece of pavement, I'm just going to walk on the grass, on the curb, right, to miss those people. So then I miss the pavement, and then it's completely
blind
pointless.
people shouldn't be walking on the grass.
Here's my other problem with this, and this is a ideology of developers, I think, everywhere, and people in general. The blind people need guiding to certain places.
Yeah.
And I have a problem with this too. What if I don't want to go to that market from wherever I start, from that dorm or from that college? What if I don't want to go to that market? What if I want to go to the strip club?
There you go again.
Who makes the decision that blind people should go here or should go there, or are you really going to put it everywhere?
Yeah, and I don't
because if you put it everywhere and you can standardize it, then by all means go for it. Although I still think you should be replacing the cane. But if you can't do that and you're going to pick and choose which places blind people should go, then I don't like that, because then you're choosing for blind people where they should go.
Yeah.
And if they're going to standardize that, why don't you just cut out the cane and like maybe just have some kind of signal go to your
Shoes.
phone?
Yeah,
No,
shoes
just to
or
straight to
something.
your phone.
I don't know, or straight to your phone.
Well,
or
your
something.
phone wouldn't be able to detect the RFID tag, but
Well,
maybe your shoes could.
but a different I
Have your
mean,
have your toes vibrate or something, I don't know.
but they could use some other kind of technology to
Yeah.
do
20
it,
volt shock if you
I
hit
don't
the
know.
wrong part of the pavement. Off the grass, damn it.
Yeah, don't say bad words. She might get demonetized. Very bad.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Whoops. Oh, well.
Let's
But no,
kick Marco out. No, okay.
it's
um,
there's
yeah.
been, I've got to say though, Carrie, there's been some really interesting discussion. I'm just looking through the chat about various different points of view, and it's clear, just even with your listeners, that a lot of people either agree, disagree, or are right in the middle. There's a lot of
Yeah.
difference of opinion on this one, that's for sure.
Yeah, most people, I would say, want the cane to stay. They're happy with the cane. They like the cane. And my thing to you, to you as the people listening is, do you like the cane because that's all you know and you're really resistant to change? Do you like the cane because you're afraid of what might be a different solution? Or do you like the cane because you actually like the cane?
Yeah.
Because what I would think is a lot of people don't actually like the cane. I know a lot of people who get frustrated every time their cane gets stuck in a crack and all of a sudden jabs them in the stomach, or all of a sudden their cane snaps because it gets caught in a door or in a drain or
Whatever.
whatever.
Yeah.
Or in a crowded situation, your cane trips up people. Somebody
Yeah.
just goes splat on the ground because you tripped them with your cane. Do you really enjoy that? Do you actually like that? Or is it just that you're so resistant to anything different? And this is what you're used to, that you actually like it. And I would say the users think about that. And when you say strap is expensive and you don't like strap, and when you say you don't want to support any of this other tech, and you want to tell developers that what you want is a smart cane, think about what you're saying. And is that because this is all you know? And as developers, I would say, if the Wright brothers hadn't invented planes, we'd still be on horses. A lot of people back at the time didn't think we needed planes. They were fine with horses. Horses got them where they needed to go. Same with cars. I mean, why do we need cars?
And
We
can
have
I just
trains,
add
we
to
have
your
horses.
train of thought here, Nim, and say that a lot of people, especially in this country, are against this sort of technology, but also think about the fact that we don't have a lot of developers that are actually interested in being innovative. In my opinion, anyway, a lot of blind people, from what I read on mailing lists or see on the internet, all they're really interested in is finding an app that can read their mail better, which is all good and well. There's plenty of apps that do that sort of stuff, and that's fine. But there's not many developers out there that are actually interested in actually pushing things or pushing the envelope on technology that's not really or hasn't really gone anywhere lately. So I think it's important that we actually also try to be supportive of these guys and these developers that actually are trying to change the landscape a little bit and move things forward. Because it doesn't happen very often.
Absolutely. That's why I pre-ordered strap, even though I don't see it replacing my cane. And look, I'm kind of in the middle in the sense that I love how with my cane I can, go to the bar or go to the store or go to class or go to work or go wherever I want. And it's a little complicated. It's not as easy as it could be if I could see where all the things were, but I can do it, and I can, take vacations to new cities I've never been, and I love doing that, and my cane empowers me, and I appreciate that immensely. But at the same time, why not look for a better way? Like, you can do both.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with Kurt. I think that while there isn't an alternative that is as good as or better than a cane or a guide dog, then why don't we just stick with that until they do come up? I think that's what most people are going to be more comfortable with. And
That's right.
not everybody wants to be a trailblazer. Not everybody wants to try out the new technology. And so I think that until that kind of technology gets to a certain level, people are not going to embrace it.
But I think while that's true, I think it's important for developers not to then ask blind people what they want and actually innovate.
Right.
Because as long as you keep asking blind people what they want, they're going to tell you they have trouble reading their mail and they want another OCR app. And by the way, we need a new cane, a new type of cane. And as long as you keep hearing that feedback, if you're a developer and you keep hearing that kind of feedback, we will never see progress. So you have to go do something that has never been done before. And I know that's really hard to do. That's not easy, and I'm just talking here. I'm a nobody on a YouTube channel, having a chat.
Well, that's the thing,
But
right?
I'm just
The
saying that
what
this
some
isn't. Oh, sorry.
Go
Go ahead.
ahead. No, some of the best inventions are the ones that people didn't think would succeed, or the ones that they didn't even know that they needed. And
Right.
so that's, I think, what we need in the blind community. But
Kaylee here. Kylie
okay,
says BTW. Don't want to use a cane. Uh, get a guide dog. Well, I'll tell you,
you
there
have
are a
to.
lot of bad things about you. I hate my guide dog. Not as a dog. I love my dog, but I hate guide dogs just as much as I hate canes. It just happens to be I hate them maybe a little bit less.
Oh, poor Pooch.
Let's see. What are the cons of working a dog? First, you have to deal with all the dog hair. You have to feed the dog every day. So whether you want a child or not, whether you sign up for a child or not, you pretty much got one. Except this is a 2-year-old that never grows up. You you want to go traveling to another country? Oh, too bad. Kish kish for you. You either have to go and get a bunch of paperwork done and vaccinations and quarantines and all that, or you're just not going. Too bad, too bad. Or you can leave your dog with someone else. Here in the States, actually, it's been getting harder to fly because of new rules that keep coming out. And so now we have to actually fill out forms to be able to
Mm,
travel. Every time we want to travel, you have to fill out a form that says that, oh, this is not a violent dog and whatever, and that this is a guide dog and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so you leave your house. You have to remember all the stuff that you got to carry with you because of this is your guide dog. You have to remember that you need to feed your dog. So you're going on a 3-day vacation. You might think, oh, I could just carry a little carry-on bag. Think again. Maybe you have to carry some dog food along, or you have to figure out how to get it where you're at.
mm-hmm.
There's a lot of downsides to working a dog. A lot of downsides that I personally would much rather never have to deal with. Except I hate canes even more than dogs. So, and actually, to be fair, I see the pros and cons of both, but I still don't like either one.
Yeah.
So when it does come to reading signs, going back to what we were talking about, what do you guys usually do, or what do you use,
Um,
or reading things just like in a store or anywhere?
Honestly, I find a sighted person and ask if they can help me. Like sometimes that's a lot
Mm-hmm.
faster than trying to pull out my phone, open the app, switch to the right mode in the app. I got to go away from the document read to the text read, or from the food label to the document. Like these apps are not designed very efficiently. And so usually I just find myself finding someone in the store and saying, hey, which way do I go for such and such a thing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm usually the same. It depends on where I'm at. And to be perfectly frank, whether I could see or couldn't see, I would never be a fan of shopping anyway. I'm pretty sure. So for me, going to a shop is just an absolute necessity that I have to be there, and I just want to get in and out as quickly as possible.
Shopping
Unless I'm
is
going
fun,
to an
guys.
unless I'm going to an electronics shop or a music shop, then I might be more tempted to be there for a while, for quite a while. But that's just me. So yeah, I just generally find somebody and say, "Where is this?" and then grab it and go. Pretty much.
I use the app called The Voice for quite a lot of things, and so I use either a head mount and head mount my phone, or I use a pair of smart glasses. And I use the voice because, first of all, what the voice does is it turns what the soundscapes of, well, it turns whatever the camera sees into soundscapes. And that's really valuable because it gives you a representation, an auditory representation of anything that you're passing by. It allows you to do things like know where the crosswalk, the lines in the crosswalk are, so you can stay in the crosswalk, for instance. As a blind person, I don't have to rely on listening to traffic to be able to do that, which, you can certainly listen to traffic, and it's probably advisable, but you have things like the voice that can do that too. The other thing the voice does is it reads signs. Does OCR, and the benefit of the way that it does OCR is it'll read the text in whatever side that it sees the text. So if something's on your right side, the text is read out on your right side. Now this helps if you're wearing like headphones, bone conduction headphones, things like that. So that helps. In a shop itself, none of these technologies truly are work. If I know exactly where an item generally is, for example, I'm a big fan of Coke. I can easily go to the store, pick up a Coke, and I know exactly from the feel of the bottle, and I can scan it with Lookout just to make sure it's not a
Huh.
Diet Coke. Use an app called Lookout, and I know this is a Coke, and I know exactly where it is in the store. So if I'm just doing that, that's a pretty quick thing. Otherwise, I don't know. I like to do my shopping online, or I will get somebody to help out in the store. We need better solutions for that.
Yep.
Again, it kind of goes to the lack of information. If I
Mhm.
go to a store, I don't really have a way of reading the labels on items. So if I get somebody to assist in the store, hopefully they speak English, hopefully they're patient, and hopefully they're willing to read that. And I can tell you that's not always the case.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct.
So,
Yeah,
you know,
definitely. I mean,
Yeah.
as a girl, I love shopping. I agree with Zara here. Well, it depends on what we're shopping for, but I
Yeah.
mean,
I've also got a comment on a one just above that there, Carrie,
yeah,
about
it says,
someone who's very well, obviously discouraged about what sort of university degree or college degree they're going to do. Obviously, from the sounds of it, you've had quite a lot of negative um, feedback, I guess, which is a real shame. So it's very hard. I mean, I don't think anybody can recommend what you should do for a university degree.
Yeah.
You've got to want to do what you want to do, and I certainly would encourage you to go after whatever you choose to want to do. But it sounds like you've been somewhat put down and discouraged from doing what you want to do. And I think at the end of the day, it's your choice. If you want to go to university and if you want to do something, then do what you want to do. I don't think
I'd
you
also
can really,
recommend maybe trying out some general classes.
Yes,
And,
that's
yeah.
start out with some general things, and as you go along, maybe take a class of whatever and say, oh, is this interesting? Is this something I might want to get into more?
yeah,
If you
find
don't
what
really have
interests you.
if you don't
Yeah.
really have any idea of what you want to study, you don't have to. Just try a class of this, try a class of that, see how it goes, and just generally do your general studies, and then maybe take some different, what do they call them, electives?
Yes,
Electives, yeah.
electives.
And by the way, university isn't for everybody, and I'm one of those idiots that doesn't have a degree, so don't think that you even have to go to university.
Yep.
It's completely okay not to go. Not that I'm discouraging you from going. I think it's good to go.
I
But
actually
if you
really
do go,
like the
then you should
classes
only
idea.
go. Yeah, but if you do go, you should only go for what you want to study, not what someone
Right.
else tells
Exactly,
you.
yes.
and
Yeah.
and don't do it just because you think that's the only way to get a job as a blind person.
That's right.
Yeah, definitely not. I agree.
You know,
And
if
I'd
you
say that
go-
for everybody, blind or
Yeah.
otherwise.
Absolutely. And I think the idea of doing a class, like if you really don't have an idea of what you want to do and you're just trying to work out what the hell you're wanting to do, maybe take a class, take a year off and take some classes and just have, I mean, surely there'll be a few things that you're interested in doing. You know, you'll have a few things in your head. It's like, oh yeah, I'm kind of interested in this. I'm kind of interested in that. Maybe take a class here or there, like Nima said, and see what comes out of it. And then if you decide that this isn't what you want to do, then you can move on with that later on. You know.
Yes. Yeah, I definitely agree. Sarah Williams asked, do you prefer application products or physical products to assist you?
Oh,
I prefer physical products.
Physical for me. Yeah.
Because application products, you're dealing with. So again, it's one of those. It depends on the physical product. It really depends. Let's just put it that way. A lot of times, the physical products are better than their app counterparts. So you're carrying around a phone anyway, which makes it good because you always have your phone with you, which is good. But a physical product tends to be a bit better at doing whatever it is. Let's say the money identifier thing. By the way, the U.S. for whatever reason still doesn't have accessible currency. The money, the iBill, the little tiny little thing that NLS gives out that you can attach to a keyring, that thing is far superior to telling what your currency is than pretty much any app on the App Store or Play Store. Those apps
Yes,
do okay.
but you have to carry it with you. I
do.
mean,
You do. That's what I'm saying. I think the apps are more convenient,
yeah.
but a lot of the times the physical are a little bit more accurate. For example, a physical scanner is generally going to be a lot more accurate and better at reading your mail.
Do you
Does that mean
find
that
that
you shouldn't
true?
use an app? I do. Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah, I can
I
tell
could
you.
not agree with that. At least from my
Mm,
experience working at a low vision center, every time I used whatever OCR, what was on a scanner or whatever, um, I found apps much more reliable.
No, I
But
find the
that's
anyway,
flatbed
interesting.
scanners will give you a much more reliable result. It depends on what you're scanning, but generally, if you have a really good flatbed scanner, they will give you a much
oh,
more
So
do you
I've
mean like a
reliable.
always
regular
used,
scanner?
Yeah.
yeah, a
Yes, a
regular
regular
Oh,
scanner.
flatbed
okay, a
scanner.
Yeah,
regular scanner. Okay,
yeah, yeah.
Yes,
I
See,
was
yes.
I've
thinking
always
of
found
the.
that if I use a regular scanner, like for example, I've got an Epson, that's just my preferred one that I like, and then I just use AAB, what's it called,
No,
ABBY
Abby.
fine reader or something, and that
Yeah.
works well for me.
is that free? Is that free?
It's not
Abby's not
free.
free. No.
No,
Okay,
it's not
yeah.
free, but it works nicely. Now, if I just want to have a fairly good idea of what the letter says, and I don't need to have any specifics, and I just want to know, okay, where's this from and what generally does it say, I'll just run it over my phone. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But,
Like,
you know,
let's say everything was equal. The apps were as reliable as the physical devices, and the apps are also more convenient. I would definitely say the apps. But a lot of the
yeah,
times, the physical devices just happen to be a bit more
Yes.
reliable.
No,
yeah.
I can agree when you're talking about like a regular flatbed scanner, but what
Yeah, no, not the
they
camera
do
things.
make these scanner products for
Yeah, no.
like blindness products,
No, no, no.
and I
Yeah, yeah,
find
yeah.
them, I
Yeah,
find
yeah.
those just don't
They're not
work
good.
very well at all.
No, your phone camera is going to be way better.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
definitely.
Absolutely.
So Martha says, just set me up with a driverless car and I will be good. Like, I definitely want a driverless car, definitely, but I still would want,
Yeah, I
like,
think that's still a ways off, sadly.
eh,
We're
Yeah.
getting very
well, we're
close.
We're getting
getting
Yeah.
there. We're
close. We're
getting
getting
there.
close, but not
I
But
quite.
think the
I,
trouble that we're running into now is the legislation side of it.
Yep.
mm,
Mm.
but what I would want, like, as I'm driving in the car still, I would still want to know what I'm passing. I want to
I would too.
know,
Yeah.
oh, okay,
Mm.
what street are we on, or what business are that? Oh, like, I mean, from low vision side, oh, I see something over there. What is that thing? I want to know. I want to have that kind of feedback because I
Yeah.
mean, when I'm with somebody sighted, my mom, I'll be like, Mom, what's that? What's that? What's that? And I don't want
Yeah.
to have to ask her.
And that's why I like Nearby Explorer, because it actually will alert you of these things even in a car.
But the thing is that, I mean, it's not just businesses that I want to know. I want to know, okay, there's like
Yep.
a statue over there, or there's
I would
like,
love to know
oh,
those things too.
what is that structure that's not really a building? I still want to know what that is.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the biggest, developers, you're listening, that's the biggest need that blind people have is a lack of information. We need to have information. And if you think that you're providing too much, it's probably actually not enough. I would say include checkboxes or include settings so that people can turn off things that they don't want to hear. But as a whole, you can't provide too much.
Well, that's what I was saying before. I'd rather have too much than not enough. And then if you
Yeah.
don't want that particular information, you can always just turn it off. I'd rather have the
Yeah.
option of at least being able to turn it off
Agreed.
rather than not
That's
having it
right.
at all.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, and I think Audrey is right. She says like people gonna talk and assume whether I use my cane or not. They did it when I was sighted. Too. Not one thing. If it's not one thing, it's another, and I like trying new
Yeah.
things. So I
That's
Yeah.
think
right.
Yeah.
that's
Exactly.
definitely true.
And especially if you're a sighted person and then all of a sudden you're using what they call an ID cane and stuff like that, a lot of people are going to turn around and say, well, what do you need that for? You can see.
Mm,
What do you need an
mm-hmm.
ID cane for? Like, it's going to happen whatever the situation is, and you just need to not worry about it at the end of
Martha,
the day.
I absolutely love your comment. The problem with blind technology is that has been so many products in the past 50 years that have just absolutely sucked. It's like the Geordie. Yeah, I 100% agree.
Mm.
There are a lot of blindness by physical products, I was not referring, by the way, to blindness products, because a lot of those products are very much overpriced and they're very much underperformance, such as the Braille note takers that we now have that are tens of thousands of dollars. Maybe not literally, but
It may as well
the
be.
Geordie that you're talking about, a lot of this stuff. And yet, some of the best technologies that we've seen have also disappeared, like the Opticon. If anyone does
What
not
is
know what the
that?
Opticon is, it's a device that let you actually read raised print because it made things tactile. So you put this device over a piece of paper or whatever, and it made that tactile. And so you can actually read anything.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
That device is no longer being made, no longer being manufactured. It's dead, no longer exists. It was, never really took off.
And another cool device that was around back in the 90s was also a device where you could actually write. And it was you used to put a piece of paper on this wire board, and you could actually write and feel what you were writing.
Oh, those still exist.
They still have those.
I don't know if they still
or
have that
different
sort of stuff around
iterations
or
of
not.
it.
They were
Yeah.
kind of useful, especially when I was going blind initially and
Yes,
still wanted
the
to remember
Pac-Mate's
how to write
horrible,
stuff.
Martha.
Yeah.
I loved mine back in the day, but yes.
My only thing with like blindness products is I don't understand why they use such old technology.
Yeah.
The
When
reason
they-
is that when they started developing, and I think a lot of people don't understand it, and I understand it and I don't like it, but a lot of this is the reason why they do it, is when they started developing this stuff, so like the new Braille note, the latest version of Android that's what they were using at the time. And that's what they were developing with, or whatever it is. Like they were using pretty high-end components at the time, or at least the components that they could easily source. That's what they were using. Now, it takes a long time to go through a product life cycle, and these companies, they're not very big at all. So instead of upgrading with the times and saying, oh, we're going to upgrade to Android and all that, if they did that, they would never release a product. So instead, they get it out there based on what they started with iterating with. And so, yes, we end up with stuff that's really old. It's really out of date.
How do you think
But
they
at
can
the time
solve
when
that?
they started developing, it was actually good.
Yeah.
They can't. There's no demand for blindness products. Very little comparatively to the main market. Very little demand, and unless you get a lot of funding, it's very difficult to say that you're going to produce. And when you go buy components for Braille notes, you have to consider how many people are buying Braille notes versus how many people go buy computers.
Right.
And why that matters is if you don't have the numbers, then you can't buy in bulk.
And this is
therefore
going to
you're not
happen every
saving
time
money.
when you've
Yep.
got a blindness product. Unfortunately, they're generally just going to either be really expensive because they have to be expensive because they only have a select number of blind people. Now, you've got to also remember that, yes, there are a lot of blind people in parts of the world like Asia, etc., but they're not going to buy these products. They haven't got
Yeah.
money to buy these sorts of things. So you've only got a select number of people that are actually going to buy them. And your main countries are probably going to be the US, Australia, the UK, and Ireland and all those sorts of places, but that's about it.
And the
And
Braille
Canada.
products are even worse because
Yeah.
there's really only how many blind people are there that are totally blind? So 1% out of all the people who actually have vision loss.
Right. And not all of those
Yeah.
are reading Braille anymore.
Yeah.
Most of them don't read Braille, so about 5% of those actually read Braille. Now, to show you how important Braille is, about 95% of those people who read Braille are employed.
Yep.
So Braille is really important.
But unfortunately, a
But
very small
unfortunately,
proportion of
very
people
small-
read it.
Exactly. For a lot of
Yeah.
reasons. Some people have diabetes, they have neuropathy, they have lack of feeling, they never learned it, whatever it might
These
be. But now,
devices are expensive.
devices are expensive, but you can't make those devices cheaper if you're not selling very many of those devices in the first place.
Right. Yeah, I think with like the note takers, it would be better to focus. Like if I was HumanWare or one of these other companies, and I think they're slowly pivoting this way, is focus on the Braille displays and let the computers and the phones be the computers and the phones.
If I can, I'm just going to look through these comments here. It looks like here it would be interesting to see a study of how many people who are blind who have an education that don't. Let me start over. Wow, I can't read. Be interesting to see how many people. A study of how many blind people out there got jobs who have an education that don't. I would think that it would that more people who are educated would have a better chance of getting those jobs. I guess that's probably true, but that's true overall. If you have a better education, you probably have better employment. I can tell you, I'm not educated, and I'm getting close to a six-figure salary. I also live in California, so keep that as, it's a grain of salt, whatever that's worth. But there are blind people who very much aren't educated, who can make it and are happy doing what they're doing. Whether that's actually making a lot of money, I don't know.
Yeah.
But they're actually happy doing what they're doing. And yet, there are a lot of people who have college educations, who go to college, and some of them stay years in college.
Yep.
And guess what they're doing? Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then afterwards they get a job that didn't have anything to do with their college degree or didn't require a degree, and then end up having to pay off student loans.
Well, it's funny you say that, and I completely concur with that. A friend of mine just finished her college last year, and now she's working in a job that she could have potentially been doing 6 years ago instead of doing a college degree. So, I don't know.
Yeah, and
I do think education's important. I think it's really important.
Yeah.
But it's not always.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. I think that's something that happens in society as a whole. Like, people go to college and then they don't know what they want to do. They have a different job. They do all those kinds of things, and they have to struggle with the debt. But also, I mean, I think in the blind community, well, really in just in general, sometimes we just don't have that. I think that we don't have a lot of that motivation. Sometimes it's just easier to just, stay at home and do nothing.
Thanks to the benefits. And I blame, so I did a lot of the research back about 10 years ago, and what I discovered is it takes about $40,000 a year, at least, to make working worthwhile, and I'm sure it's a lot more than that now.
Yeah.
And why is that? Well, because if you're blind, you get SSI, the benefits, Social Security. Here in the States, I'm talking about SSDI or SSI. If you've worked before, it's SSDI. You also get, potentially, depending on what your income is, or if you have any supplemental income, you get food stamps or whatever they're called now. You get low-income housing. You get Medicaid, which pays for literally anything that you might possibly want medical-wise. Medicaid is the best possible insurance you could possibly imagine having. Whereas if you start working, all of a sudden now you have to pay for your own health insurance. Maybe your employer covers part of it, but you still have to pay some of it. You now have to pay for your food. You now have to pay for your transportation that maybe was covered before. You now have to pay for your whatever, your schooling, all these things that maybe would be covered before. So how much money do you need to make before it becomes worthwhile working?
Exactly. It's that middle ground that it's hard to overcome.
Yeah, it's a real thing.
And it's the same thing over here. I
tested out an outdoor Amazon locker with my earbuds 2 nights ago. My friend let me play with her Opticon. Yes, Opticons. There we go. Braille is very important to me. Yep, very good.
Galk says, is that my sister? Or is that, I don't know. But being educated is not always dependent on a college education. And so, like, I definitely agree on that. It depends on what type of career you're going to get into. I mean, I think that probably if you're going to be a doctor or something like that, you might want to get definitely a college education. But there's a lot of things that you can do in classes or just programs that you can she says yes, okay, I guess it's my sister, where you can learn.
Hello, Carrie, sister. I have a lot of things I need to tell you about Carrie. We should talk after this podcast. Very good.
Do you know the other thing that I think is very unfortunate though is that a lot of people do go to get a college degree and then do start another job that's completely away from what they've done, and then they've got the worry of paying back that $100,000 that they got to pay back for that college
degree. That's not
degree.
A blindness thing.
No, that's not a blindness thing, but that happens all the time. From a blindness
perspective, it's actually better because now the state has to pay that. They're the ones who pay for
that's
a lot
right.
of that.
A lot of it has to be paid back by them. Correct. So I don't know.
I do think. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Kurt. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I do think, though, in the blindness community, there is this trend I don't like from, educators in particular who say, hey, you're going to have a hard enough time getting a job. You need to go to college, which I know that is a thing people say everywhere, but I think it's extra pronounced in the blindness community. And I wish we'd take a step back and say, like, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that education is more than a college.
Oh, 100%.
So, I mean, yeah. Um,
Blind Bill, he wants to know. You all mentioned scanners versus other things. What about the Pearl camera connected to computer with JAWS? Well, the Pearl camera is a camera, and the smartphone cameras will take a poop all over the Pearl camera any day. I wish this wasn't true, but unfortunately it is. And so you might as well save your money. And if you want some kind of a scanner, they get one of those cardboard things. They do make those Fapidos or whatever they're called. There's some other ones. They're just pieces of cardboard that unfold, and some of them even have lights on the top of them. You put your phone there. They have a little cutout for your camera, and you put a piece of
mhm.
paper underneath, and you're using your camera lens to take that picture on your phone. That's going to give you a better shot than that silly
It's,
little
it's
Pearl
just
camera.
like one of those stands for
Yeah,
document scanning.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's pretty much make sure that everything's lined up as it should be, essentially.
could use a stack
So,
of books too. No,
well,
no.
I personally just I don't even use that stuff. I actually agree
Mm.
with you, Kerry. I just chuck it on a table and hope for the best, really. But you know, generally works for me.
Well,
being educated is not always dependent on a college education. Yeah, very good.
Absolutely.
uh, Kylie says uh, I think they're saying I've been seeing that a lot of my blind friends who are educated and can't find jobs. Yes.
Yes. Mm. Well, I
Education
was
should be
lucky.
relevant. Yeah, it is relevant. I mean,
Mm.
like on the whole, I think education is important. I think
Yeah.
it's if you can get an education and you're built for it,
Mm-hmm.
you're the kind of person that can sit in a classroom and you're interested in what you're learning and you're going to use it. By all means, go get an
Yes.
education.
Sure.
Agreed.
Highly,
Sure.
Yeah.
highly recommended. Yes, do it.
But you
I'm
know how
just
many
saying that's
people
not
I've
for all
seen that
people.
have gone to go and get an education and they've got no idea of what they want to do. They spend 3 or
Yeah.
4 or 5 years at
That's
college, and
everyone. That's everyone
it's
though. They do that. They just think that college
yeah
is something to do, or maybe
something to
it's a
do, and
time
I don't know.
their
Yeah,
parents made them do it, and they're not
mm,
really committed to
to
getting an
actually doing it. That's right.
education. You know, they
I
just
think
want
the
to
bigger
party.
trouble, yeah, I think the bigger trouble that I'm noticing the trend is in high schools, kids aren't being prepared for college.
Mm,
Yes.
So when
yeah.
they do go to college, which they're being forced to because everybody tells them go to college, they are definitely not prepared for college, so they have no possibility of success. They have no chance to even begin to have a possibility of succeeding because they don't have the tech skills, they don't have the other skills that they need, the social skills, they don't have the daily living skills, they don't have any of the skills that they need, and they're going off to college, and you know what they're going to do? They're going to fail. Before they
Yes.
even had a chance of success, they're going to fail.
In a lot of ways, I think the school system definitely can coddle anybody, but especially people who are blind and visually impaired. I mean, at least in my experience, I had classes that, the teachers would just feel sorry for you. And it doesn't matter what you do or what you
Yep.
don't do, they'll just give you an A, a B, whatever. This just, okay, you're fine. You pass. And
I
that's
was
not how it works in college, unfortunately.
No, and I was a trainer in Minnesota, and there's a lot of people. And when I remember this particular person I was working with, and she wanted to go to college. She wanted to be with her friends, was really excited about it.
Mm,
She had no skills, no tech skills, no nothing. She didn't really feel like she wanted to learn it. As a high school kid, you say to someone, hey, sit down and take these extra special tech lessons. Who the hell would want to do that? I wouldn't.
Yeah.
So she didn't. And
mm.
then she went off to college because that's what she thought she needed to do. And she was so excited to be with her friends. And literally a couple months later, I get a call and she wanted me to help her take her exam because she didn't know how to do it on the computer. And I said, no, we can't just schedule something like that. We certainly can't help you during an exam. And she didn't do very well. Obviously,
Mm.
she didn't. So, I don't like that. I don't like telling someone you're not going to
and
do
and
well,
that's the thing. I
but
think
she didn't.
that a lot of I mean, when people are low vision or blind, I feel like there isn't enough training or emphasis on training them and pushing people to a higher level that they could
Hmm.
go to. At least like in my case,
Mm.
even with my what is it, TVI, teacher for the visually impaired, she just did whatever I wanted, and I she taught me Braille, but I I just learned it for like the 5 seconds that she was with me, and then it just went out the window. And now I feel like I wish I did learn it and actually could use it.
So I
Um,
went to a blind school for about 3 years, 2 3 years, 2 years, and I did the same math class twice. Why? Because it was the highest
mm,
math class they had. So they literally gave me the same book twice each year. Said, "Here you go."
Hmm.
It's the best they had. So you either
It's
get blindness
interesting.
schools that don't have the academics that will maybe try to help blind people with some of those skills, or you get public schools with vision teachers that are so overloaded they have to
Yeah.
drive many miles
mm,
because they have so many students all over the
yes,
districts and all that,
very true.
and they don't have any time to actually learn the tech skills or learn the different things, so they can't actually help their students. So you get one of
See,
those.
over here we
you
don't
get one
have
of those
blind
two.
schools. We haven't had blind schools in this country for nearly 20 years.
Well, we need to get rid of ours, but
Yeah.
Children here generally go into mainstream education, and then they're supported by what they call VTs, or visiting teachers, and that's how it works here. It's been like that. I only went to a blind school for 1 year when I was about 5 years old. I learned how to read Braille, which was great. And I learned how to use some basic computing at about 5 or 6 years old, which was fantastic. So I actually knew how to touch type when I was 5, which was excellent. And then I went into a mainstream school. And that was it.
Oh, they have
So-
Braille in Australia. Very good.
Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah.
We even used UEB, you like?
Ha.
Wow. I got an opportunity to take some free tech warships. I loved it. What's a
I think
tech
they mean
warship?
workshops.
Workshops. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was a little confused. Yeah, that's the thing too. A lot of tech trainers, they charge a lot of money for their service.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's getting harder and harder to get that training. Still possible to go to your VR agency and say that, but a lot of times it's based off of a need for employment or education. And so if you seem to be doing fine, then it's really hard to get that training. But, I know someone that does like to help out people in the community, so you can reach out to, blindtechguys.com, and I think there are a few people that might be able to help
Yeah.
you. So,
Now, over
reach
in this
out.
country, a lot
Actually,
of
no,
the
what's her email?
a
I
lot of
just said her email
the
wrong.
blind tech guys at, what is it?
Contact.
Contact
Contact
at
at
blindtechguys.com.
There you go.
In this country, it's very different,
Like
actually. As you probably know, or some of you would know, the government does actually pay for a lot of the amounts that, or the fees that tech trainers charge, which is why in this country a tech trainer could charge quite a lot. It's craziness. It's like $180, $190 an hour.
Woo.
Yeah. So there's good.
Yes.
I work in that field, and there's good money to be made, but the government does pay for blind people to get assistance. I have to say, out of any country that I know of, if you want to get assistance, Australia's pretty much where you want to be at for that sort of stuff, because you pretty much get whatever you like.
So a lot of times here, at least, they have training centers that you can go to, or you can always try to get a trainer to work with you specifically. But a lot of times it's based on your state, whether they have enough dollars,
Yes, that's true.
whether or not you have an employment goal.
It's
It depends on a lot of things. So it's just really unfortunate.
it's incredibly interesting how, like, in New Jersey, they gave well, that's where I used to live. They gave
like
us
coffee.
everything everything that we
coffee.
wanted. If I was like, okay, to my vision teacher, I want to try that thing out, and she's like, oh, okay, and she just got like every single thing that I wanted or asked for. And then in North Carolina, it's like pulling teeth,
Yep,
and even
exactly.
after you pull it, they still might not give it to
So
you.
in this country, it doesn't matter what state you live in, you get the same, essentially how it works, it's called the NDIS. You actually go and meet with a planner, and they actually ask you, what do you specifically want to get out of it? What goals do you have? So if my goal is to be a podcaster, for example, I would just say I want to be a podcaster, and I want to be able to I have enough funds to be able to cover new equipment. And you could get that assistance.
Wow.
Which is quite ridiculous.
That's interesting. Here, I mean, they want you to get a job. Like I
Yeah.
have heard experiences of other people who have said that that's their vocational goal, and they're like, no, we can't accept that. We can't help you if that's your goal. And I think
Homemaker
that's-
used to be a job, but it is not no longer. So if you're somebody who wants to be or is a homemaker,
Oh,
it's no longer a job.
I think I lost you.
Oh, it
No, we
definitely
can hear you.
is.
Hello.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you guys.
Yeah, I can hear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bad internet, I think.
Oh,
Oh, am I not
okay.
here?
No, you're
You
there.
weren't
Oh.
on my end for about 30 seconds, but I'm back now.
Oh,
Oh.
okay.
All right.
Okay.
Welcome
It's
back.
it's probably me.
It
Yeah. So,
usually
what
is.
what do you guys
Huh.
think of these training centers and especially the blindfolded one? Well, I mean, you probably wouldn't need to be blindfolded, but for the I guess they're the
Well, for the
NFB
NFB
centers,
centers, you
right?
do have to be blindfolded.
So even if
You
you're
do, yeah.
totally
Really?
blind, even if
Yep.
you're totally blind, you still have to?
Why the hell do you
Yeah.
have to be
They-
blindfolded?
I got around. I got
The hell?
around it by like proving to them that I couldn't see anything, anyways. But that was, I think,
They
the
still
exception.
What the
generally
hell?
require that. It's in it, yeah.
Huh.
And
Right.
it's just they say it puts everybody on an equal playing field, and everybody's just blindfolded. I don't have I have a problem. So
That is the most
If you go-
ridiculous thing I've ever heard of. Oh my god,
So
that's
here's the thing.
laughable.
Here's the thing: if you go to anywhere, if you go to a hotel, you should do your research about what you're getting
Whoa.
into. And
Yeah.
I find that these training centers actually do benefit some people. And if you have a lack of blindness skills, or if you're so reliant on your low vision that you're losing, it actually can be a great thing. But you have to be a specific kind of person, and that's what I don't like about their training model.
Yeah.
Is they don't leave any room for different types of teaching styles, teaching modalities, and I don't like that.
Mhm.
Because as a trainer, you really should meet your students where they're at. You should push them,
Yeah.
but you shouldn't. But I think that also falls on the student. If you know that this is what they have there, and you don't like it, then why in the world would you go there?
Yes, I think though, from the low vision perspective, I know a lot of people who have low vision that would be really fearful
Yeah.
of being blindfolded and losing basically not being able to use the sight that they do have
Yeah.
to do whatever they need to do, and I mean, in my case, honestly, like that is a struggle for me even, and I wish, I don't know, like I kind of agree, um and I like the idea of being blindfolded so that you don't just rely on your vision, but it's definitely a really scary thought.
It's a scary
I
thought, and I think it has to be up to the individual. But they don't make it
Yeah,
up
but
to the
honestly,
individual.
what
They
a
just say
load of
this is part
I'm
of being
sorry,
our
but what
training
is the
center.
point of this? Like why? What is the point?
Well, there's a lot of points to it. I mean, the points to it is that you help somebody actually be
No.
competent
I'm
in their
saying
blindness
why do you
skills.
want to have everyone on what's this rubbish about everyone being on an equal playing field? I mean, I don't understand. What's the point?
Because then you're able to teach the similar skills, and you're able to do it easier in a group format, and it helps people feel more acquainted with their blind brethren.
Right.
I understand I may not agree with it. I understand the
Okay.
purposes behind it. Somebody says,
Thank God we don't go down this
And
plight in this country. God,
homemaker
what
is a
load of
job.
rubbish.
Yeah, I wanted to
Yes.
address that. It is a job, but it
Yeah.
is not according to rehab.
It's definitely a job. Are you kidding me?
Absolutely,
according
it's a
to
job.
rehab.
From
Yeah.
experience, it's definitely a job, and sometimes it could be harder than just like your run of the mill job. That's ridiculous.
But there's the NFB models, and they also have a lot of things against guide dogs that I don't like. So
Yeah.
if you're going there, then they won't really work with you if you have a guide dog, particularly for mobility. They used to make you actually leave your dog in a cage the whole day, in a kennel.
Wow.
They're better about
Thank
that
God I
now.
live
Better
Australia.
about that now. Yeah, they're certainly better about that now. But it used to be a
Wow.
big thing. Like you had to use your blindness skills and your cane, and working a guide dog.
I suppose
wasn't
they didn't
really
like
seen as
people
that.
using their cane either.
Oh, no, you absolutely had to use
No,
a
but
cane.
it has to be an NFB cane. It's a
Yeah, that's right.
great NFB
Yeah.
cane.
You have to use a
lol.
cane, but things like asking for directions or asking for a sighted guide, those are frowned upon, or you only have a certain number of times you can do that, or generally frowned upon.
Yeah.
So what, do you get a spanking if you ask for too many times? Or?
You just don't do it. I mean, they don't like you doing it. You have to use your
Wow.
And I actually find this
That I don't mind so
I
much.
actually
But I
find
can
this-
understand that, but
Yeah.
you know.
when you're learning, it's a
I
good
get
way to
that.
problem solve. But the problem that I have is that independence doesn't mean doing everything by yourself, and that seems
Right.
to be
No.
their definition of it. And I don't like. I don't
Yeah,
find that to
so
be the definition of it.
In a training center, I can understand why they
yeah.
would want to, because if you can find a
Yeah.
way to do it by yourself while you're in the training center, then if you're in just regular real life, then
You have
you
to find that way to do it as
you
well in real life.
yes,
Yeah,
you
that
can
makes
find
sense.
out a way to do
Yeah.
it, or you could ask a sighted guide. I mean, I don't think anybody needs to learn how to do that. Well, maybe some
I
people do.
disagree. I think a lot of people who may be going into these centers are newly blind. They lack that confidence.
Right.
They need to be able to know that it's actually acceptable to ask for assistance if you need assistance,
Yes.
because that's part of real life.
Well, that's
Part of
true.
real
That-
life is
that-
sometimes you need to ask for assistance.
It is, but I also think they need to know it's acceptable that if someone is not there, that you
Yes.
can figure out what you're doing. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But I'm generally, I think they offer good things and bad things, and it's up to each person to really figure out: is this a center that I want to attend? Do
Yeah.
they and
have
ask
to
those
do-
questions ahead of time?
Yes, you have to do
Am
your
I
due
willing to be
diligence.
blindfolded? And if I'm not, why? Is that because of a fear, or is that because I just really don't find the point and just don't learn better that way? If it's a
Yeah.
fear, then maybe challenge yourself and do it anyway.
So, some people, if they feel that they have enough vision and they want to be able to have those blindness skills using the vision that they have, that's definitely an argument that I have heard.
yeah.
Why can't they teach me in the context of where I am instead of like, blindfolding
So
me?
the counter argument I've heard, and I don't know the right answer to this, right? I'm totally blind. The NFB training model helped me, but I understand that it's not a one size fits all for everybody. But what I've heard is everyone's low vision is so unique. So what they say is we're going to teach you how to do it without. Then once you know that, you can decide based on your specific vision where it's better for you to use that and where it's better for you to use your, the techniques we taught you. And because we're not going to know that because we don't have your vision. That's
And
what
the
they
other
say.
part of that is there's quite a lot of people that have low vision. Their low vision isn't necessarily stable. Some it is.
Exactly. I mean,
some it certainly is, but a lot of people it varies. It varies with lighting. It varies
Especially if
during
you've
the
got
day,
RP
during
or
the
something
night.
like that, where
Some
you're going to lose
people's
your vision.
actually,
and
some people are actually declining.
yes.
Yeah,
there,
exactly.
there are degenerative
Yeah.
conditions, and even if sometimes a doctor might say that it's stable, they don't actually they cannot guarantee 100% that that's going to stay that
Definitely.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's very interesting how you guys are talking about how you're taught over there. So over here we have mobility instructors, and you can pretty much be taught in whatever environment you want to be taught in. So if you want to learn your local environment or you want to learn wherever you want to get around, then they'll come to you.
We have those too.
Yeah.
We can do it at a centre, which we certainly don't all have to be blind for, which is quite funny.
Well, we have those too. So again, there's just
Yeah.
it's just a model. So we have the
Right.
NFB model.
That's
There's
the
different
NFB
types
one.
of centers.
Okay. Well, that's good.
That's not all training centers here. And I actually mobility to me was always a joke, and I don't really find mobility lessons valuable in any way, shape,
I never did,
form, or
personally.
anything.
Okay, why is that?
This is to me. It's one thing that if you don't have any skills at all, okay, you do need to learn how to cross streets. You need to learn how to use a cane. Sure, got that. But after that point, what do mobility people do? They teach you a route.
Yeah.
What happens when your route has a lot of construction and you can't go that route?
Yeah.
You need to learn problem solving skills. And I find that mobility lessons in general don't teach problem solving as much as they teach routes.
Yes.
And I don't even know how you go about teaching problem solving. You either do it or you don't do it. I mean, you
Right.
either,
Oh, I
you
honestly
either get
think
stuck
sometimes
somewhere.
you've either got it or you haven't got it, unfortunately.
Right, you
Sometimes
either feel stuck and just can't do anything. Like you have to be given an opportunity to practice
right.
it. But
Yeah.
when I say mobility, I mean I'm saying like somebody calls up an instructor and says, "Hey, I'm starting a job tomorrow. Can you come help me find this place?" Why can't you find it on your own or use
Right.
some of your other tools to find it? Why do you
Right.
need the mobility person to come out and help you find it?
Yeah. And
And if
see,
they do help you find it, are they teaching you multiple ways to get there? And how long are they spending on doing that? Because usually it's what, an hour lesson, maybe 2 hours if you're lucky.
And the unfortunate thing, like you said, is if you get a taught a way to get to from point A to point B, what happens if someone all of a sudden puts a great big brick wall in the way and says, right, we're
Right.
going to build something here? Then what are you going to do?
yeah.
Well, I
You know.
have heard of people who have had experience with mobility instructors who will tell them where, like, once they have a general line of skills, like a skill level, they'll send them out to do something or go somewhere, and they'll just shadow them, and like let
Yeah,
them
there is that sort
handle,
of instruction
like,
as
you
well.
know.
Yeah.
So how it worked for me, and this is actually where I got value out of the NFB model, is because they were all about once they knew I could cross a street, they would say, "Hey, go find 971 South, 300 East. I'm not going to tell you what it is. Go there. When you're there, go bring something back. I'll be in my office. Call me if you need help." Like that actually taught me how to problem solve. It won't work for everybody, right? But that
No, it really wouldn't work for everybody. It's good that it helped you and a lot of people. I'm surprised. Like, there's a lot of people that definitely would not work with because part of a trainer's
100%.
job is to be the trainer.
Right, and I'm not saying they did that at first. That was after they
Sure.
had been with me for a while, and you know all that. But like,
Yeah.
and I'm not trying to advocate that as like the right way for everybody.
Sounds great as a trainer, though. Just kick back, relax, send your person out. Bye.
And there were plenty of times my trainer went with me too, you know, and like we had to figure stuff out together. But you know, it's
So,
it helped
Daniel,
me anyhow.
Daniel
Hi,
R
Danny.
says, I understand limitations when it comes to, he says guide dog. So I'm going to guess it's guide dog. And this is
Oh,
coming
yeah,
from
the
someone
iPhone dictation, because it always does that.
from someone who was a guide dog handler for 8 years. So
I prefer female dogs, though.
we actually did talk a lot about guide dogs in the beginning of the streams, but yes, there's pros and cons about
Yeah.
both. And Audrey says, I knew when I was first rapidly losing vision that I could not trust what I thought I could still see. I made myself learn by discovering with my eyes closed. I did better eyes closed. And I did what? What is this? I did a few times get a friend to shadow me.
Shadow me. Yeah, with the eyes closed. That's exactly what the NFB model pretty much is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, a lot of the times you will go out in groups, with other
Mm-hmm.
people who have vision loss. Or,
Yeah.
well, they don't like vision loss. They say blind, who are blind.
Yes. I mean, even right now, I'm trying to learn how to use a screen reader, and I'm having a lot
And I'll
of
tell you,
trouble.
that is how I learned. The best way to learn how to do something is to do it. So the
Mhm.
best way to learn to use a screen reader is don't use the mouse. In fact, hide it. Just tape it down. Don't use it. Don't touch it.
Well, I try to turn off my screen.
No, don't try. Just do it.
And then I ended up turning it back on. I'm
Yeah,
like, what?
exactly. This is why the NFB model works for a lot of people. Because you
Yeah.
don't have that option of looking.
Right.
You put that blindfold on. You
Well, you
keep
could
that
always
blindfold
take
on.
off
Very
the
bad.
blindfold.
Nope. Keep it on. Nope. Keep it on. But you will learn.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm trying.
It's how I learned Dvorak. When I learned it's a keyboard layout. It's how I learned Dvorak. I mean, it's how I learned languages too. It's like you just force yourself to speak it. That's it. You just do it. You just don't do anything else. Just do it.
The problem is I get really frustrated with it, and so I just
I know,
like, okay,
but
forget
just
it.
do it anyway.
Mm.
It is
And
frustrating.
then it's a lot faster if I just, use the mouse.
But you're never going to get faster if you don't use it. See, as a screen reader user, I get frustrated with them sometimes, but you still just do it.
All right. Well, let's see. Is there any other comments here?
When I started losing my vision, problem solving became a way of life. Yes, that is the comment of the evening. You always have to know how to problem solve.
Yes.
Yep.
That is
If you can't
true.
problem solve as a blind person, you're going to be living in your house, not doing anything.
I think that's one of the things that you do learn pretty quickly as a blind person. Well, you have to learn pretty quickly. Definitely.
Awesome.
Well, the Blind Tech Guys wants to thank Carrie Live Accessible, or Live Accessible? Live Accessible, for letting us come
Screen
on.
readers say lives. Okay.
We definitely enjoyed our time here, and
Yeah.
hopefully if
Yeah.
you're still listening to the stream, I definitely want to encourage you, if you want more of our crazy thoughts and opinions and a lot more jokey, fun, tech type things, check us out, blindtechguys.com.
And we're
We
not the
usually
sort of
go
channel
live.
that gets too technical either, guys. We're not.
Yeah, right.
We try to keep it simple so if people are worried, it's going to be really full-on tech. It's not like that at all. Give it a
Yeah.
go and have a listen.
Most
go
of the
live
time, I
every week.
understand what they say.
Yeah.
Yep, and if we get comments that say you don't, then we try to address them, maybe with a chuckle or two. But,
Yeah.
we go live every week, 7 p.m. Pacific time, 10 Eastern, whatever that time turns out for you. And we also are a podcast, so ask your favorite smart speaker to play the latest episode of the Blind Tech Guys podcast. And also consider making that pre-order of Strap. I think, it might be worth it, and it certainly is going to save you a lot of money over what the regular price is.
Yes,
Absolutely.
and all those links are also down in the description of this video, so you guys can check that out.
Very
But
good.
thank you
Very
again. Thank you, Marco. Thanks, Kurt. Thanks, Nimmer, for coming on.
Yeah.
And this was
Thank you.
an awesome discussion.
It really was, and 2 hours just flew by. I looked at the time and
Yeah.
like, wow,
Yeah.
this is just craziness.
And
So
we
it's been
are
a pleasure.
welcoming you on our show, by the way, Blind Tech Guys. When is that? Next week, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Next
I have to look.
week.
Next
that'll be
week. I
cool.
think it's next week.
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
Sunday at
That'll
be cool.
10 p.m. Eastern.
Yep.
So
So
that'll
Live
definitely be
Accessible will
fun.
be on our show then. So check us out. And very good. YouTube.com/Blind Tech Guys, or just go to our website. And by the way, we don't bother with video. So if that
Yes.
offends you, that might be not your cup of tea. But
Look, I'll turn my video on just because I can, but I won't worry about where it's pointing. That could be interesting.
Oh no. Let's just keep it off.
Okay.
we might have some clothes removal while we're on.
Hey, Kurt. Yeah, that's your favorite.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
And-
Now we're getting into some dodgy territory. Hey, hey.
And
Boy,
on
yeah.
that note, thank you everybody for watching, and we'll
thank you,
see you
guys.
in
Yeah,
the
thank
next
you.
video.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, guys.